Hey folks, welcome into the BN Cubs Podcast. I am Brett Taylor. That's Michael Cerami. We're here to talk Cubs, courtesy of our sponsor, Ankin Law, 3126 million, injury law made personal. And I realize only now as I'm coming to the close of this sort of standard intro that I probably should have struck a more somber tone as I was introing, because we'll have to talk about some challenging news at the top and the fallout therefrom. But you know what? I was a little swayed because I said this to you, I think yesterday, Michael. We were deciding when to record the pod because it's an earlier game for this finale against the Toronto Blue Jays. We're recording this Thursday morning. And I said, well, if we do Thursday morning, at least we guarantee the Cubs will win Wednesday night. Because as dedicated listeners will recall, we have joked at times how it seems like every time we go to record, even if a challenging series has happened for the Cubs, they win right before. So we have like an uplifted tone in the podcast. And indeed, they did it. But I guess we can get into the tempering blow from that game that kind of sucked a lot of the joy out of the win. But let me start here just with a general note. The talk of the last week, obviously, has been about the offense. Number of guys going through protracted slumps that are tethered to some real struggles in a lot of ways. It's differing for different guys. Michael Busch is swinging and missing a whole lot more than usual. Kyle Tucker is hitting it on the ground a whole lot more than usual. Crow-Armstong is not doing any kind of damage whatsoever with meatballs like he normally has, et cetera, et cetera. I noticed in the game last night, even as the Cubs did not compile a ton of offense, there was considerably more quality contact from a lot of guys. And against a very good Blue Jays
pitcher
starter in Kevin Gausman, and also just it's a good pitching team there in Toronto, pitching at home. We're recording this on Thursday, finale's coming, and then of course the Cubs will go forward from here before we talk again. But like, what's your sense of where things stand with the offense? Do you fall into the Craig Counsell camp where he's like, we have good hitters and it's just the way it is? Or is it like, crap, there are cracks that have emerged and this is going to be a discussion ongoing for the next 6 weeks?
I mean, so I definitely think, and I wrote this last night in the box score, that I prefer last night, or let me rephrase that. Last night made me feel better about the Cubs going forward than had they scored 10 runs on, like 3 walks and 1 homer or like errors,
bunch of
dribblers or dinks and dunks. Like they made a ton of hard, loud contact. In particular, 2 guys stood out to me. Dansby Swanson is the obvious one. I think he had 3 balls, 103 miles per hour or more.
Hard luck champion.
I mean, it was crazy. But I think the other one, and to linger on him for a second, he is kind of a streaky hitter and he goes on really, really nice 3-week stretches. If he's about to go on one, it's an incredible time for him to do that. So please do go on a heater and let that night be the start of that. And then Kyle Tucker, he hit the ball, not like strictly categorically definitionally hard by StatCast measure, but it was like 93 miles an hour on a line, once the other way, once in the air. It just looked a little better. And then also the one he hit on the ground, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. made a really great diving play. Whatever, that's going to happen. I'm sure he didn't feel much better about it, but it certainly looked better than anything he has done in the last couple of weeks. Like it truly did. And I don't want to sleep on the fact that 2 things made me happy about Kyle Tucker this week. One, and I know not everyone agrees with this. I enjoyed seeing him throw his helmet in frustration. And I mean that so sincerely, in that I think one of the things that bothers me the most, and this is less about players and it's kind of like a broadcast issue, that is just that when I am feeling so stressed and frustrated by the Cubs and the service that I'm receiving is like glib, I'm like so much more annoyed. And it's not that I want Kyle Tucker to be mad or that I think PCA takes it way too extreme. And it's like, dude, relax. Like you don't need to slam your helmet down every time. It's the second inning. Seeing Kyle Tucker demonstrate some frustration and just reminding us that it's like, yeah, he gets it. It was nice. I like that. And frankly, I mean, Marquis kind of cut away from it too fast. It was like, no, like you can linger on that. That's okay. It kind of is what we want to see. It kind of reminds me of Justin Steele freaking out the other year. Like I know people that divided fans a lot. It was like when he was like, wake the F up.
Wake
like,
the F up.
And, I don't know. Is it so terrible to want, that? Like, do you have how does,
can I treat that? Yeah. I was going to say, let me treat that not rhetorically and actually address it. So I'm of two minds of all of those things. The Justin Steele one's a great example. I thought both of these things instantly when I saw Tucker, chucking the helmet and clearly outraged. One, to your point about the fan experience and what we are feeling as we watch and the experience we want to have as fans watching a game. I could not love that stuff more. Like, I want to know. I'm just some
Lou Piniella running out and kicking dirt on the base.
Like, because we're just some schmo nobodies watching the game and investing so much of our energy in it, right? Like Michael and I may be a little bit of an exception because this is our job, but like we still experience these things as fans, right? So fans watching these games have no skin in the game other than their own passion for the sport and the team and the players. And so if it matters that much to us that we are chucking our remote control, slamming down our beer, punching our pillows, like we've all done these things, then a little part of us, when it gets to a fevered pitch, we want to see that same thing from the players and the manager. And I know Craig Counsell gets a lot of guff for not coming out and arguing vociferously in the way that Lou Piniella, of course, always did. And Joe Madden his fuse would ignite. Dusty Baker too. Like if you got them right, they would pop. And we don't really see that from Craig Counsell. So that's one half of me. The other half of me is the observer of the way sports unfold and how we try to predict the future and what matters and what doesn't matter and what impacts the play on the field and how we want players and managers to treat these moments for purposes of more success going forward. Okay. Mm-hmm. And on wearing that hat, these moments of outburst or whether Craig Counsell comes out and screams and any of that stuff, it matters zero to me. None. Because I think it has zero for as nice as it was, for example, last year, I could be remembering this wrong because we create stories to tell ourselves. But when that Justin Steele thing happened, I feel like the Cubs had a good couple of weeks thereafter. And
then they went on to make the playoffs and reach it all the way to the NLCS. And it obviously works.
Yeah, it works. And so I understand that that's a story we like to tell ourselves, but that's part A. That was that first hat that I was wearing, because in reality, I just don't think it matters. And indeed, I think if we could do like a huge data analysis and somehow perform this study, my guess is popping off. If anything, it probably has a negative effect. It probably,
shut up, man.
I know. I hate this part. I hate that.
No, you're not wrong, but you know what it reminds me of? This entire conversation reminds me of like when people say like anyone can be the closer, your stats, or anyone could perform well in high leverage, your stats. And it's like, I don't know. Are we really ready to say that like adrenaline or intensity has no bearing on a physical sport? It's like, I just don't know. But that's almost like a reverse correlation thing, because you only blow up when you're doing terribly. Right. You don't do that when things are going well. So to say that like it doesn't go well after that, it's like, well, because it already wasn't going well.
Or vice versa. You were bound to have some natural regression.
Or that, right. You know what I mean? So it's like, for me, it's kind of like A takes over to going to your split, because it's like, okay, at least show me something. And for the 1 millionth time, I don't know why everyone needs to. This is entertainment. This is supposed to be entertaining. This is not we're not in the business of making money on how many tickets are sold or how well. I want to enjoy it. And when it's going like this, those are things that you need. Sometimes it's cathartic. It's like, it's a shared like frustration. You feel more closely aligned with the team, like, yeah, they get it. They're and listen, no one hates more the argument when people say like, oh, this player doesn't care. They don't care. Of course they do. That's stupid. Of course they care. And we're going to get into why like a player like Kyle Tucker might care, especially right now. But save it for later. So whatever. And then, so anyway, the second thing that I really liked from Kyle Tucker that I saw is that he took batting practice before each of the first 2 games in Toronto, which is something he doesn't do. And, you know, for those that don't care at all about the emotional outburst, then here's the other side of it. Here's him demonstrating, I'm going to change something. I acknowledge that this isn't going well. And, you know, I feel as though, and I tweeted this the other day, because we all know Kyle Tucker is a good, very good player. And because we all want him to re-sign with the Cubs in spite of, or despite of this stretch, we're all like tiptoeing around saying anything negative about him. We are. No one besides David Kaplan is like out there saying anything. And it's like, what are we doing? We're completely losing all objectivity because we're like, we know, and it's because we know he's good and it probably will turn around for him. But like all he's done is, yeah, he's walking a ton. It hasn't been good. And last night was a good sign, but it's like, why can't we talk about this?
Yeah, I thought your point, because I saw your point, was great on that. Because it does, we are infused at all times with this like delicate, and I don't mean we as writers, I mean we as fans, this delicate feeling of like, okay, but we know he's good and we love him, want him to stay with the Cubs. Therefore, the things that are going bad are really walled off. Like they're really just this isolated, explainable thing that we just sort of don't even want to look at. And we have, from an analytical perspective, it was so funny. I wrote a post last week, I think, on Kyle Tucker's slump. And when I was making the URL for it, I think I just made it Kyle Tucker slump, right? And it automatically populated as Kyle Tucker slump 2 because
I saw that, Brett, and I went, oh my God, it automatically updated to 2.
Yeah.
That is
and it's
really
because
funny.
Michael had written one, you know, I think like a month earlier. And they were different. There was different context for each, but ultimately they were the same kind of exploration, which is like, hey, his numbers are really bad lately. What's up with that? And what do we think about that going forward? And so I think that's still fair game to talk about it that way. This isn't really contravening Michael's point to say, wait a minute, though, we can say, wow, he has, in a lot of ways that the Cubs need him to be, he has stunk for a month and a half. That's just a fact. You can point to the overall numbers and be like, hey, you know, he's still good, right? Like how many players in a terrible slump are putting up a 380 OBP? And 380 OBP helps a team. Got it. But that's not what the Cubs need Kyle Tucker to be. They need him to be a lot more than that. And so it is fair to say that this version of Kyle Tucker stinks for what the Cubs need him to be. That doesn't mean that we're saying he'll be that for the next 6 weeks. Indeed, a lot of the premise of what I wrote is he's had funks of this depth and this length before in his career, and he's been fine. It doesn't have to mean he's sunk or whatever. But Michael's point is we don't have to be quite as precious about criticizing him because of his unique situation, it is unique.
Yeah. And you know, I'd have to look into this. So I'm almost hesitant to bring something like this up, but I worry a little that this is going to be nuanced and taken out of context will sound stupid, but just stay with me.
I'll chop it up so
it
sounds horrible.
Yeah. Part of me, like the walk rate, which is floating his OBP during this stretch, is like very high. And I almost wonder if it's 2 things are happening. Like he's become a victim of being pitched around a little bit and he's just accepting his walks and doing what he can. And also that's sort of like a lifesaver for him to be like, well, I'm still doing something. And it's like, but like you said, it's kind of like, I don't know. I can't put a fine point on that yet. Like I haven't crystallized the thought in my head. And the thing that I'm trying to avoid is when people say like for Joey Votto, they're like, he's walking too much. It's like, no, that's good. But you need to do that and produce to be Kyle Tucker, number 2 hitter on the playoff.
Let me put a spin on on your point, because it might not be the exact point you're making, but it sprung for me something that, one thing we'll never say is a guy should start extending his zone to try to get hot again, whatever. Because
agreed.
Yes, you can get some hits and a little bit of slug outside the strike zone, but by and large, in over a large enough period, you will not succeed that way. There's a reason that's the strike zone is the strike zone. Like that's, you won't succeed that way. But I think in a way, if you're walking as much as Kyle Tucker is, it is at least arguable that becomes a counterweight to you getting back on track, because
that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Kind of floats your productivity. And it's like, well, okay, I'm still taking my walks. They're pitching around me. What can I do? And either the generous way to describe that is he's not getting as much of an opportunity to sort of hit his way out of this. The less generous way would be when he is getting strikes and opportunities to hit, because of course you're still getting opportunities to damage the ball. Like it's not like he's got a 100% walk rate. And he's not doing enough damage when he gets those opportunities. And so I think that an argument that you could make this, we're getting like way into non-data, like there's no way to really dig into if his walk rate plummeted in conjunction with, like, say his strikeout rate climbed and he also is making crappy contact, it could have compelled more of a total reset to sort of be like, okay, things are really off. I got, start from scratch kind of thing, which again, with Kyle Tucker specifically, maybe we debate whether that's a real thing, but I do kind of like this idea that maybe there are times, this is a bigger point, and I'm sure it's true, that there are times when one aspect of a guy's production, might be walks, might be some fluky slug, it might be a lot of things, will end up working against his ability to work out of a true slump, because you can point to the line and be like, well, it's still going fine. Don't change anything. I like this.
I feel very heard, Brett. So I appreciate that. This is a good opportunity then to kind of transition into our next bit of news that came out last night. Well, you were, I think, fast asleep. I hope watching like season 2 of Andor or something. Owen Caissie.
Can I tell you what I was doing?
Prospect. Yeah. What were you doing?
Our oldest had a bunch of friends over, and they were doing their own cooking challenge or whatever. And so after that, we were sampling some things that they cooked, and then they were doing karaoke on the TV. And my teenage daughter asked me to do karaoke with her and her friends. And I was
oh my God,
dude, I am not going to say no to that, because to be invited into her world for even just for 30 minutes to participate in that, I'm like, yes, I am not going to say no to that.
What song did you guys sing?
So it was blind karaoke. You ever done this with friends? You can't look.
You have to face the other way.
And they pick a song and you're supposed to just, the problem is, so
that's a TikTok thing, I think.
Oh, okay. That makes sense why I don't know it. And anyway,
you are 100 years old
because I'm a million years old. No, but it's like there's some Disney songs, but it's the karaoke version. So I don't know when to kick in, because it's the same thing, the same layer playing again and again.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did like a whole new world, which I believe I did with some aplomb. Embarrassed.
I assume there's videos of this, right?
Oh, thank God, no. Just
man.
So anyway, that is what I was doing approximately at the time that the news dropped that Michael is about to get into.
Yeah. And so Owen Caissie is coming up. But before we talk about Owen Caissie and how he fits in and what our expectations are and all of that stuff, I want to tee something up for you. Because when the news first dropped that Amaya was going down, my initial speculation, which I don't think I was that crazy, was that, okay, they'll probably call up Moises Ballesteros. He's already been up this year. He's on the 40-man. He's also a part-time catcher, which we can, I don't know how much they would really use him at this, but whatever. It seemed like that was the easier 1-for-1. Were you surprised that it was Owen Caissie instead of Moises Ballesteros? Do you prefer one or the other? Before we get into all of that stuff, like just take, because that was, I think, the default reaction of a lot of folks. It's probably going to be Moises.
Yeah. Well, so can we dispense with the Amaya part of it real quick? Just because everybody knows.
Oh, yeah.
And it's sad. And so Miguel Amaya injured, first game back after the return from the oblique. injury, steps up first base, turns the ankle, the knee locks up, and early diagnosis, sprained ankle, x-rays negative. We'll see if they do further scanning on the knee, which is what I'd be afraid of. And anyway, it just, you just feel so horrible for this young player who, was away for 2 months. He's had many injury issues in the past and worked so hard to come back, and Cubs finally get it back. By the way, don't forget, he was hitting really well this year.
Fun.
So it would have been great to get his bat back.
I know.
So
sucks.
We'll see. The implications there there's not a ton to dig in on because the Cubs had already been operating without him, right? It just sort of stays status quo. Reese McGuire is the backup to Carson Kelly, who is the sort of true starter.
Okay. You could pause there. Carson Kelly's been good, and Reese McGuire's been a very capable backup.
Yeah.
Amaya was probably a lift, but it's not like it was.
It would have been different.
Right. It
was different the first time he got injured in terms of how it felt like, oh my gosh, we have to talk about how this is going to affect the team. This is potentially a worse injury. So I'm not being dismissive of that, but it's sort of, we were already in this zone. So, okay. I actually did not have the reaction that I think is understandable, that it wasn't Ballesteros coming up. He obviously had gotten the call multiple times before when it was sort of a bat-centric call-up. Caissie was already on the 40-man, just like Ballesteros. So why, if Ballesteros made sense then, why not now? I think a few things militated in favor of it being Caissie this time. One, he's on such a profoundly aggressively hot stretch that it isn't to say he's not going to continue getting value at Iowa, but like the rate at which his strikeout rate was the rate at which his rate, I guess that's like it's like an advanced math concept, right? The rate of change of a rate of change was dropping at such it was unbelievable. How quickly his strikeout rate has been dropping the last 2 months while his production has been climbing.
Yeah. Do you want me to spit some stats at you
for
go ahead. Some recent stretches? Because I went and looked at it. So since May 16th, 270 plate appearances, he has a 166 weighted runs created plus with a 24.8% strikeout rate. That alone is incredible, and that's the bigger sample. June 8th, he's got a 184 weighted runs created plus with a 22% strikeout rate. June 25th, he's got a 205 weighted runs created plus with an 18.5% strikeout rate. And since July 22nd, this is his last 66 plate appearances, he's slashing 411, 485, 661 with a 16.7% strikeout rate. That's not a heater. That's, you have figured out the league, and it's no longer any reason for you to hit there anymore.
Especially as we're getting up and past 100 plate appearances for a lot of these. Like he is, I think, potentially going to need to see different caliber of pitching in order to stabilize more of that. Whatever he's doing to improve his contact rate, I think he's going to need to see better pitching to lock it in, and to still be able to produce enough power. Like Owen Caissie, we'll get into this at other times when he's sort of more of a regular, but like he's just a fascinating player when you watch him, because he's this huge, strong dude. Raw power is near top of the scale, but his in-game power has always been much less than you might think. Just sort of look at him, and it's because he's got a swing that's not really geared toward a lot of that kind of production. It's a little flatter, little line drive, a little more all fields. And
start pulling the ball. Just pull it more.
The thing is,
I know it's not his thing.
I know. It's just so funny.
That, like, it worked for Matt Shaw so well.
Matt Shaw, who's so much smaller, but like he does have a swing where you're like, oh, I can see it. If he just pulls the ball in the air more. With Caissie, you watch him, his best swings, they're just not, even when it's a home run clip that you're seeing, right? Like, it's like, well, that's because the pitch was right there in the path of his best swing to generate a home run. And so, which I'm not criticizing him as a hitter. It's just that he may not be the kind of hitter you think that he is. So anyway, I especially want to see him facing tougher pitching with this new higher contact approach, to see if the power like totally evaporates, because that we're going to need to know that information. The Cubs are going to need to know that information soon. right? Because next year is the last year that they've got. Kyle Tucker may have already walked. Ian Happ and Seiya Suzuki will be in their last year under contract, or 2 more years.
No, next year.
So anyway,
and Nico actually.
Sure. Although I don't know if Owen Caissie's going to hop out there.
No, you're right. I was about to say I could list 6 more players. But.
Yes. And so there was that factor in terms of like, you know what, considering the performance, considering the future planning and thinking, it's probably about time to get him up. The other thing that people will say I'm crazy, but I bet you it was a tiebreaker. Cubs are playing in Canada right now, and Owen Caissie is from Canada. And it's like, it does matter. It does matter to the success of your organization at the margins if you're really good to your players. And doing something like this, having him debut at a place where friends and family can easily come see him, like they remember that. Players remember that stuff. Players talk about that stuff, so I do think that was a factor as well. And then the last thing is I don't know how permanent this call up is going to be anyway, because you've got John Birdie gone now from the roster, right? And the Cubs are going to want a speed guy for the bench when the rosters expand. September 1, they got Forrest Wall in on a minor league deal, almost concurrent to all of this. This was sort of behind the scene. I don't know if people notice this, but he's just a pure bench speed guy at this point in his career. Probably
they lost Bruhan and Birdie, who are both speed guys, and Shaw now is the starter.
And Greg Allen at AAA, by the way, who would have again been in that mix of like, oh, he's an extra guy for the bench. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's probably going to be more roster shuffling September 1 anyway. And so I don't know. My gut says this was a 2-week, let Moises keep catching for a couple more months.
Yeah.
And then if we want him to be the just bat guy, he can come up in September when we recalibrate these things. And that was my guess. And so anyway, I was not surprised. But I'm a genius, so I understand why a lot of other people were surprised.
But like, okay, so let's get into like how this actually works though, because Owen Caissie's a lefty, Kyle Tucker's a lefty, PCA's a lefty, Ian Happ hits righties better as a lefty, and Seiya Suzuki is your DH. What is going to happen? Is he going to play?
Yeah.
I mean,
I really hope he starts today. By the time people are listening to this, they'll know, but I really hope he gets the start today. Just, it's a little bit of fan and player service, but I hope he gets it. He's hitting well and whatever.
He's going to start today.
Give somebody.
I
don't know, man. Craig Counsell is just like, he's hardcore. He like,
the Blue Jays lineup is out, but not the Cubs guy.
Okay. I think if there's like a 1% edge in the math model, that's like, no. We got to stick with our normal guys.
I hate this team so much.
But anyway, you are correct that, over the next 2 weeks or whatever, if somebody doesn't get hurt, you're not going to sit Kyle Tucker regularly, period. I don't care what his slump looks like. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You are not going to sit PCA against any righties, period. Maybe a tough lefty, but you want his glove no matter what. So like,
right.
And then Ian Happ, you're not going to sit him regularly. I understand that he's having a down year, but he's been a lot better since the break. And then Seiya Suzuki is your DH. Again, he's been in a slump too, but you're not just like all of a sudden you'll be like, you know what? Owen Caissie's coming up and taking your job, man. None of that is going to happen. And at most, maybe twice a week, you could rest this guy once a week and then rest this guy once in a week, and he gets a couple starts. But I don't think it's that.
And Willie Castro is already kind of doing that for Craig Counsell. Like he's and I don't, and so to take that even a step further, like, because I did that same process in the article last night when I was like, how is this going to work? Ian Happ is the most movable of those guys, like in theory, and the only one of them producing since over the last month. He has like a 128 weighted runs
and for the entirety of his career.
And and it's like, so I know people are going to be so, but it's like, I don't know. And not only what you said, you're not sitting Tucker with any regularity. You're not doing Seiya Suzuki with any regularity. Let's stop right there on both of them. No matter how bad their slumps are right now, there is about a 100 to 1,000% chance that they will be better hitters than Owen Caissie for the next 6 weeks.
Right.
Do not get ahead of yourselves. We do this all of the time. It is extremely hard. I mean, look at how it went with Amaya, with PCA, with Matt Shaw. It is very hard to break into the league. It doesn't matter how well you were hitting. Look at Matt Mervis. I mean, like it's not. I know he's not in the same. I'm saying like a guy who is destroying AAA pitching. It is not more likely that he's going to be an immediate offensive. Like it's not 10 years ago. It's not 15 years ago. And a lot of these teams have their best players up because you start, it's the end of the year. It's not like the old September, like when you're facing the Brewers next week, right. You don't think he's going to get all of the best possible pitchers you're ever going to get, all the best relievers there. It's the end of it's time to win. So I'm excited. I think, and so listen, there's one of two ways this can go though. This seems to be the case with every prospect. And I know I'm oversimplifying, but there's one of two things that happens. Now I'm going to like almost retread over everything I said. A guy comes up and is just scorching hot for like 2 weeks because they haven't figured him out yet or whatever. And then those guys are the ones that fall off the hardest, or more likely it's just not going to catch right away. Yeah. Right. Like it's just not going to work. And so I think people get really excited because, you know, the Cubs spoiled us, frankly, 10 years ago when prospect after prospect came up and just was immediately impactful. And we've learned more recently that it's like that was the outlier and not what you should expect from Owen Caissie. Now, it will be awesome if he can work his way into a rotation, but it doesn't fit well with so many lefties.
And it's not going to, even if he hit 4 home runs today, right? Like he starts and he hits 4 home runs. That will have zero impact on whether he starts on Friday. That is not the way this organization and this manager operate. So true. He's not going to have an opportunity to come up and be like an offensive game changer because of the positional crowding that we're talking about. And because that's not how this organization does the math, so to speak, on matchups and starts and playing time. And so just enjoy what we get. Hope he does contribute with the opportunities he has. And then, you know, the unspoken part of this is sometimes other guys get hurt. And so like, you just don't know what could happen on that front. And that's where I would leave it.
Yep. And it also is not a bad time to transition to our game because there's a little bit of that in there. So today's game, or this week's game, is brought to you by Feldco, the home renewal experts. Bleacher Nation is proud to partner with Feldco. For almost 50 years, Feldco has been transforming Chicagoland homes with their windows, siding, doors, and roofing. Feldco is family-owned and prides themselves on delighting their customers. With products made in the Midwest? Nope, that's not right. With products made in the U.S. and designed specifically for the Midwest, Feldco offers the perfect balance of beauty and energy efficiency. And we want answers, Feldco. Where in the U.S. are these made? If it's
where
not
in the U.S.?
Bring it back to the Midwest, Feldco.
Everything is just going to get narrower and narrower. And it's like, bring right. it back to my backyard.
All right. That's where I want my windows to be crafted.
That's where I want to manufacture. It's in my backyard.
Yeah. So this week's game is called Am I Crazy Or? And you're going to tell me, am I crazy or the response. Now, whatever. I'm going to remove one of them from this. So we will only have 4 because I wrote these questions down yesterday morning or 2 nights ago. And the first one was, should the Cubs find a way to incorporate Moises Ballesteros or Owen Caissie?
There you go.
So set that one aside because Owen Caissie is here.
I would have answered it this way. Am I crazy or a psychic?
Okay. So the first one, I'm starting off hot. I think, in podcast school or interviewing school, they tell you to warm the guy up, let him get it. And then you get your gotcha moment. Nope. We're going truly straight gotcha. Am I crazy? Or does the Jed Hoyer extension seem like a pretty big victory lap before victory?
No, you're crazy. You're crazy. And I know I'm the one on an island with this. And it's not because I'm, defending Jed Hoyer or like celebrating the extension as, oh my gosh, in the way I would be celebrating a Kyle Tucker extension. Right.
Right.
again, I'm going to get grief for this, but like, I agree with what Tom Ricketts said about it. It was like, look, this was going to happen. It was just the way things were trending when we looked at the whole organization and thought about the future. And so it was like, if it's going to happen anyway, can we just get this done? But, you know, like, let's just get this done.
Well, why does it? That's kind of my point, though. You say it's going to happen anyway. Why?
I understand. And
I like Jed Hoyer. I'm not even, I'm playing the heel here a little bit.
Here's why. Because the Cubs are going to make the playoffs this year. And that was clear. See, for all the kvetching about the Brewers
being
and the
division, third wild card team truly, I actually want to ask you this. If they finish as the third wild card team, but make the playoffs, is that a success?
What? No, absolutely not. But would that have been like, if we were waiting, if the Cubs more accurately were waiting to see where things landed before making the Jed decision, do you think that would have been like, oh, never mind, he doesn't get, I don't think so. And so that's all I'm saying is I'm saying,
yes,
it wasn't going to matter. And so having this reaction, which I'm not saying you are necessarily, but definitely some people are, they're looking at the post deadline performance of the team and seeing like, the guy's slumping. That extension that covers 3 years was ridiculous because of these 2 weeks. And it's like, that is not the right way to think about this.
That's super fair.
Now,
that's super fair.
By contrast, want to say, I don't care about these 2 weeks. I always thought they shouldn't have extended him and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I'll at least entertain that argument. But it's the folks who are clearly like pointing to these last 2 weeks and taking a reverse victory lap of being like,
that's
look
fair.
at that stupid extension they gave him. Oh, okay, my God, chill.
Now, let me add, first of all, you're nailing my perspective correctly, and you're right. But let me add one additional, let me buttress the people you've made the argument for, the count, like they're taking the victory lap in 2 bad weeks. Jed Hoyer has overseen 2 teams the last 2 years that have tremendously failed down the stretch.
Yes.
And it is on pace to have a similar type of relative failure to each of those teams. Like the Cubs from where they were when you don't think so? I mean, like
this team's going to win like 93 games. So no, I don't. I understand what you're saying, but I cannot subscribe.
First of all, they're on pace for like 91 wins now, and they were on pace for a lot more than that before.
You can write it down. They'll win 93. Exactly. Okay. 93.
They might. I don't think it's crazy to have concerns about the types of teams that are built by this front office and what happens to them. Like, we have to just ignore that. Like, it's not, you don't think that's,
but it was different.
Variable?
It's different every year. Like, that's not there's no team construction spice that is like, oh, we made our manager rely too much on the bullpen in July and August. That's the David Ross one. The David Ross one. No, stay with me. That the bullpen was constructed fine for what it was in the season that was supposed to be. Like, Jed Hoyer wasn't making David Ross throw Adbert Alzolay out there in a 5-run game when he'd already pitched 3 of the last 4 days and it's August. Like, no. That team crashed.
Wait. Jed Hoyer absolutely made David Ross do that by giving him.
There were so many games. No.
And
we both know because we were so close there.
You're missing my point. It's that David Ross had no option to keep his team in the season.
Yes, he could have put his outfield out. I'm not saying literally. But when he had these huge,
I thought you meant when they were pushing to win all those games, like in the second half 2 years ago.
Yes.
The only way they won those games was because they used their best relievers every night after night, and then they crashed out.
The 1 and 2 run wins, yes, but I'm saying there were multiple times where he was treating 4 and 5 run games like they were 1 and 2 run games, and he was going Leiter, Merriweather, Alzolay, boom, 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 in these games, and it was like, dude,
but I feel like that was the whole point. That's how they had to. This is so theoretical. Anyway, you answered the question.
That's not even the point. That wasn't even the point I was making, which is only that I don't see parallels between the 23 collapse, the 24 collapse, and the 25 I don't even buy that it's a collapse, but we'll get there when we get there. There's 6 weeks
they
left.
have been like 2 games over 500 for 3 months. How is that not? This is not the team.
Again, but that's a normal season. Like, this is all getting, and again, I'm not trying to put it on you.
I just don't buy this. I don't buy
all of this is getting so skewed by the Brewers having 3 months of historic play that countervail.
Yes.
The Cubs have whooped the Mets the last 2 or 3 months. They have whooped the Dodgers the last 2 or 3 months. They have whooped the Yankees the last 2 or 3 months. They are playing, their record is way better than those. And you know what else is way better than those? The underlying metrics, the expected wins, which whatever we can talk about. That's a Craig Counsell question, frankly, from where I sit. But I
feel like you're acting like if the Cubs had won at a pace that would make me feel how you would be, they would not be in first place. Absolutely. The Brewers are doing that, but they are 7.5 games out, not 3. And they should be like 3 games out.
Where are the Cubs in the standings if they play in the NL East? The NL East, the NL West, the AL East, the AL Central, the AL West. They're within 2 games in every single division.
I actually take
leading a couple of them.
I take some issue with this. Wait. Hear me out though. I keep seeing this argument. I'm leaning into it a little bit more because it's fun. So don't get me wrong.
This is great podcast content.
Yeah. So don't get me wrong. This is the first question. We might not even have time for the other ones. But here's my dilemma with this. I keep seeing people say that, they would be in first place in that division. The Dodgers have only won. Other teams also struggling in this season in the certain way at this time does not absolve the Cubs of their issues. Like, they're still not. I'm not saying you shouldn't.
That's not what I'm saying.
At 110 pace the whole season.
That's not what I'm saying. For what it's worth, that's not what I'm saying. I guess I'm just
saying for 3 months, I think it's 2 or 3 games over 500 for 3 months. That's a long period of time to not be very very good at baseball. They're like been a little bit better than 500 for a long period of time, which is okay because they won before. But like, I just don't like saying other teams have also done this. Therefore, it's okay that we're doing it.
No, the point about the other teams is teams that end the season with good records, which I anticipate a lot of those teams will, have chunks of any season where you can take 2 months. There's a little bit of play there when you're saying 2 or 3 months. We got to look at that. But if it's 2 months, teams that finish with 95 wins or whatever, you chop off a 2-month chunk for most of them, you're going to find a 2-month chunk where they're 2 games over 500. That's just, that's the way a baseball season plays out.
But I'm pretty sure when I looked at it, it was like May 2nd.
Maybe it is. And I'll still say that probably happens for most 93. I'm saying 93 win teams. That's
and again, we might look back on this, and if they win 93 plus games, you'll be right. But I think you're taking that part a little bit for granted. Like, they're just definitely.
I'm predicting. I'm not
7 more games or whatever it is.
Well, let me agree with you, and we'll close this with agreeing with you. If they go on from here, I can make it even better here and agreeing with you. Say they go on from here and they only win 86 games, but they take the second wild card or even the top wild card. Mm-hmm. Then I'll be more likely to be like, God, that was a really, really disappointing crash of a second half. Okay. Like, then I would feel that more. I guess I
guess you're right. Then maybe we are aligned. Then it's like, and with the assumption being the difference is like, okay, right. They're still going to win 93 games. Sure.
Yeah. You win 93 and take the top wild card. People aren't going to want to hear it, but I'll be like, that was a really successful regular season.
Sure. I want to add just one more hot Jed Hoyer take here. And that's, I genuinely like Jed Hoyer.
I totally forgot that's what this conversation was.
I don't think he's I don't want one thing to carry it so much, but after seeing the way the Alex Bregman stuff played out in spring training, I feel like for 5 minutes we saw the real Jed Hoyer, and it was like, whatever. His shortcomings may be in how conservative he is and maybe not being able to push or demonstrate enough to ownership why they need to spend more, whatever. But those are smaller concerns over what is otherwise a good president of baseball operations. So setting that aside, it does feel to me like Theo Epstein was the president and Jed Hoyer was his GM. And without looking at any other opportunities, we said, here you go, Jed Hoyer. And everyone was pretty okay with that. And then again, it's just Jed Hoyer again. There are a lot of great executives in baseball, and we have just committed to 3 more years of not even considering any of them.
We don't know that it's 3, but by the way,
whatever it is. I don't know.
That's just my guess, because Craig Counsell has 3 more years.
Yes, I don't. Right. And it just feels to me like I remember the Cubs traded a player to get Theo Epstein, the most decorated, highly sought after executive in the game. And they paid out in money and in prospects, and it paid off. It was a very aggressive, bold decision. And this is the opposite of an aggressive, bold decision, which still could work. But I feel like we're just like skating by on what is effectively going to be an 18-year administration.
Yeah. And by the way,
not a very successful one, minus 1.5 seasons.
Yeah. And by the way, Cubs farm system and updated rankings, just saying, has like slipped again.
And I think you know who's on the Brewers were number 1 in one, and the Dodgers were number 1 in another. And like, I'm just saying, David, you're not going to be able to get these guys, but like, probably, Andrew Friedman exists and David Stearns exists. And then there's all of those lieutenants all across the league. And we're not considering any of them because it was a lot simpler to just extend Jed Hoyer. And he does what, and that's what my concern is that it seemed a little premature. If you were going to do it, you should have done it earlier.
I said should have done it back in May, but last thing on that, and we can decide if maybe we save this game for next week. The last point is, I do think it's funny that the folks that point to these terrible 2 weeks as a predicate for saying, can you believe they extended him? I do think it's funny, at least. Not making a point. I'm just saying it's funny to note that the 2 biggest areas that we were talking about in advance of the trade deadline, the things the Cubs had to do, they have to add to the starting rotation and they have to add an impact bat at third base. The only 2 things that have gone really well since the trade deadline, starting rotation has been outstanding and Matt Shaw has been elite. And that's very funny to me that they're losing,
to be fair,
but not for the things
they did want to trade for those guys.
I know, but I'm just saying the 2 things they could have done are not the reasons that they've been losing.
But that doesn't give that for me though. That's one of those things like
that's what
it's kind of like when people are like, wow, we were so smart for not extending Chris Bryant. It's like, no, we tried to. We're so smart for not trying to extend Javi Baez. No, they tried to.
Yeah.
No, they
unanswered prayers.
Wanted to, like exactly. But whatever. And genuinely none of this is, and I think this will lose. I'm going to make no one happy by saying, I actually do think Jed Hoyer does a good job. I just think it sometimes feels like the parts that are missing are exactly what the Ricketts family enjoys about his leadership.
Maybe, but it's also, there's a little bit of a mystery box component to this where people just sort of assume that whatever lies on the other side would be better.
Absolutely. There's absolutely no, unless you're getting, there's like 2 people in baseball that
That's
what
true.
you're getting.
Yeah, I could pick a few.
Maybe 3. Do you want Jerry DiPoto, AJ Preller, Dave Dombrowski? You know what you're getting with those guys.
You know what's happening if you get those guys.
Yeah. The rest is whatever. I'll save this game for next week because I do have other ones and it's whatever. I will say that I think a fun thing to leave this podcast on is that Jeff Passan tweet that 2 months ago, the first place teams in the NL were the Dodgers, the Cubs, and the Mets. And today it's the Padres, the Brewers, and the Phillies 2 months later. So kind of an interesting change. So there you go, folks. Brett, do you want to do I almost did the closing.
No,
I don't know how to do it.
I want, hat tip to our producer, Addison, who'll have some fun with this one. He messaged us while we were going back and forth. He's like, this is phenomenal audio. And I meant it. I was serious. Michael and I see the game almost too, the game of baseball, too similarly to have like really spirited debates. So even in that one, we ended with being like, oh, actually, I think we agree. Yeah. But it was good. And he's Michael Cerami. I'm Brett Taylor. You can read our work at Bleacher Nation. This is the BN Cubs podcast brought to you by Ankin Law, 312-6million, injury law made personal. Thanks to all the listeners. Thank you to Addison. Thank you to everyone who makes this possible. We appreciate it. We love doing it. And we'll talk to you again soon.